A word to the wise. We are an explicit podcast tackling content with adult themes, as well as entering spoiler territory. Ooh, if you aren't caught up with us, which is through chapter 15 of Jade War by Fonda Lee.
Hey there, this is Cross.
I'm PJ.
I'm Ben.
I'm Aaron.
And I am Thomas.
Ooh. And we are Words.
Spooky Thomas.
And we are Words and Whiskey, a podcast for veteran and novice readers alike. We tackle fiction novels and love to talk about what we're drinking. You should think of us as your intoxicating weekly book club.
Intoxicating.
That was great, Thomas. Thank you for
Thank you.
That was actually
both
both of
such
those
a good
were excellent.
The first one I was hoping for kind of like, it's the NBA playoffs on TNT. I was trying to go for like a sportscaster vibe. I don't know if I hit it at all because I didn't rehearse, but brought a lot of energy
I can see
to
that.
it.
I thought news anchor. Yeah. I was
Somebody anchoring something.
for sure.
Most anchoring this
definitely.
team.
I like
bringing
that.
us down. Thank you.
Not that you could see it because this is an audio podcast, but spooky hands that accompanied you.
It's called Spirit
made Aaron and I
Fingers.
laugh.
Thank you. It is called
But
Spirit Fingers.
it also like went down a little bit more, so it was like a little bit more of a full gesture.
It was like creepy jazz hands.
Creepy jazz hands. Have you guys been? PJ, I see your dog
Great.
walking around.
Yeah, one's walking around, one's like at my feet right now. They're hanging out. They were inconsolably barking at nothing right before recording, so I've been in here, so they have
It was a
nothing to bark
ghost.
at.
Yeah, were they looking at something as they did it?
Me. They were looking at me.
You're
They
the
ran
ghost.
inside.
You're haunted.
They were outside doing their business, and then they ran inside and both looked at me and barked at me. And I tried following them outside. Nothing there. And they just wanted to go back inside. They had nothing for me. They had nothing.
We want to go back to the waterfall, dude. That's what they were trying to
Yeah,
say.
probably want to go back to the
They don't-
farm that we were at all weekend.
Fun.
Guess they don't rot with TLC.
Farm with a waterfall. That sounds pretty majestic and not something we have here in Kansas.
The waterfall wasn't on
We got
the farm,
farms.
but it was like half a
Waterfall.
mile
Not
away from the
waterfalls.
farm.
Oh,
There was I don't know if anybody saw the story that I posted on our Instagram page of me like pointing out how short the head beam was on the entrance. There's a nice big scratch on the top of my head from me running head first into it.
Were you drunk?
That's tough. That's tough.
No, it's just
This is tall people problems.
this tall.
Oh, I wouldn't know.
It could not be me.
I have to
be
say, I've
me.
never hit the header of a doorway.
It was super
I've scraped my head on a ceiling before, but never a header of a doorway.
Were you in a hobbit's house?
It was a small room. It would be illegal to build today for sure. Like, it is not up to code.
Aaron, can I say I was seconds away from making a Hobbit whole hero joke?
See? Me and Thomas.
You guys are just in sync today.
Always.
All right. Today is our always. Today is our second episode talking about chapters 8 through 15 of Jade War. So before we get too much further, though, PJ, what's the featured cocktail? What'd you make?
I was having a little bit of trouble with inspiration today, so I did what every resourceful young person today would do, and I just asked ChatGPT to do it for me.
No free ads.
So I gave the prompt of give me a cocktail that would pair well with the first 15 chapters of Jade War by Fonda Lee. And this is the response that I got. Title, The Jade Emperor. Ingredients, 2 ounces of green tea infused vodka, 3/4 ounce honey syrup, equal parts honey and water, 1/2 ounce lime juice, 1/2 ounce fresh orange juice, 1 dash of orange bitters, 1 sprig of fresh mint. Instructions: to infuse the vodka, add 1 to 2 green tea bags to the bottle of vodka and let steep for 2 to 4 hours, depending on how strong you want the tea flavor to be. Remove the tea bags before using. In a shaker filled with ice, combine the infused vodka, honey syrup, lime juice, and orange bitters. Shake vigorously for about 15 seconds until well chilled. Strain the mixture into a rocks glass filled with ice. Garnish with a sprig of French mint. The Jade Emperor is a refreshing and flavorful cocktail that pays homage to the novel's setting and themes. The green tea infused vodka represents the Jade City, while the honey syrup symbolizes the delicate balance of power between the clans. The citrus juices add a bright note of optimism, while the orange bitters gives a subtle touch of bitterness that nods to the looming conflict. Enjoy the cocktail with your book club as you discuss the first 15 chapters of Jade War and savor the flavors and complexities of both the drink and the novel. Cheers.
Well, no one ever accused ChatGPT of being short-winded.
That's true.
Much like this podcast.
So that's the whole recipe. I did make a few adjustments based on what I had at home. I had tangerines, not oranges, so that's a slight difference. And then I didn't have mint, so I wasn't able to garnish it properly. But
I liked what you did, though.
I'd like to ask, how'd you get such a straight line on the
fuzzy
what's
one
sprinkled on top?
Oh, that is not this one. This is the one that ChatGPT made.
Oh.
I will talk about the next one after this.
We made two versions.
I made two versions. I made this and then I tweaked it and made my own. This one is
for science.
Good, but kind of lackluster. It almost tastes only like iced tea. Like I don't get almost anything else out of it, which is, I was kind of surprised. It tastes like unflavored iced tea, weirdly.
Mint might have actually helped in that case.
It could have. It probably could have. The other thing that I changed that I forgot to mention, I didn't want to make a whole bottle of green tea vodka, so I just took 4 ounces of it and then put a single tea leaf or a tea bag in there and let it infuse for 3 hours. So that's a lot more tea to vodka ratio than what they were expecting. So it might just be a little bit heavy-handed in the tea aspect of things. But
tea category.
I did something a little bit different. I added an egg white, and instead of serving it over ice, I served it up. I added more lime. I did about I did about an ounce of lime juice instead of the half ounce that it called for. Maybe a little bit less, 3/4, about an ounce, somewhere in there. 1.5 lime as opposed to. It's whatever. But then I also garnished it with matcha powder. So I had a bench scraper that I put over half the glass and then dusted with matcha powder over the top for visual effects. And it looked really, really pretty. But it's also the sharpness really, really helps bring out everything, and the silkiness of the egg whites makes it feel more like an actual cocktail as opposed to iced tea. So both good though. But this feels more like an actual cocktail than the other one.
Does the other one feel like a robot cocktail?
Yep.
Enjoy Jade
real
City
hard.
with your
Soulless,
friends.
Heartless, cold.
I
did want to add.
I was expecting it not to be as good as it was.
That's fair. I did want to add that when I saw that, I went, wait a second, the Jade City. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's maybe not said at all in the books that it's ever called Jade City. It is only once in all of the books. Only once is Janloon referred to as Jade City, and it's in the first 60 pages because it's what foreigners call Janloon, is Jade City. Only one time though, and I was like, the Jade City. Not a whole lot of people say that. It's not a, I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you seen that meme that's when the author slips in the title of the book? In the book, and you're like, oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't whistle, but you do the Leo meme.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in the first 60 pages of this book or the
No, Jade
book?
City, which is also why I was remarking upon it.
Yeah,
for Jade
that's
War.
odd.
Yep. But because we spent a lot of time on the cocktail, what's everyone else having?
Cold whiskey like an idiot.
Like a madman. We love it.
It was dumb. I don't put ice in it. I just wanted to try it. Did a little weird, and it's stupid. It's not good.
You only
Yeah, I don't
like
know
warm whiskey?
I like warm whiskey with maybe a dollop, the tiny bit of water to make it breathe or whatever. Normally I do neat.
That's because you're neat.
Fair.
You're
Thank
a neat
you.
guy.
Wow, that was nice.
You're so neat.
I'm drinking Bud Light.
No
Nice.
frads.
I am drinking Jameson Lemonade again. There was one left,
Oh.
and it's very good.
It was good last week. It will be good this week.
No, I didn't think it. How about you, Chris?
I'm having absinthe and water because I'm a madman, and I didn't have any fruit left over from this weekend. So,
Do
didn't
you
have any
guys like
citrus to make
enjoy
anything
black
nice.
licorice or?
I
No.
like. So this doesn't actually really taste like black licorice as much as it does like fennel. So it tastes more like the bitterness, which is still anise. It's still black licorice-y, but it's not nearly like I don't like eating black licorice. I like this though. Yeah, I
Same.
was kind of miming that.
That said, it's been a long time since I've tried black licorice. Like it's been since I was a kid. So maybe
when
I
I'm an
like
adult
it now
now,
that I
you know?
like absinthe. I don't know.
I'm not sure. Not sure. All right, folks. Before we talk about the chapters, what'd you guys think about this week's reading? How'd you feel?
I'm glad we got some more fighting. It reminded me of like a Mission Impossible. No, that's not it. It reminded me of X-Men when Magneto is going up against all the cops.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
And then Magneto's like,
I get the
"Ha
Magneto
ha."
vibe.
And they're like, fuck. And then they all die.
Lifts up all the guns, flips the cars. Yeah. Definitely has that vibe.
Mhm. I'm just mad our main character doesn't make an appearance in this section.
Oh, Barrow? Yeah, it's super missing.
That's why I liked it.
I'm gonna pretend Cross and I steamed this up appropriately. We were like, we got this fucking gross Doru chapter. We can't have a Barrow chapter in here.
Absolutely cannot. Cannot do both.
I enjoyed this week. I thought there was a lot of good developments for our female characters. Shay and McWin both had pretty great chapters, so I was really enjoying that.
Yeah. They had some banner weeks, I think, all around between, especially McWen gets a lot of time in the sun, and we definitely finally get back to like Shay and dialing in on that story, as well as some tangential fun with Andon that I see no one noticed. Or not noticed, but mentioned.
Yeah, tangential fun.
Oh, Andon.
Oh,
I have
a good time in
I have
Hispania.
agendas to get
It's a
off.
fun. Yeah. You've agendas to get off. All right. Sounds good. Sounds good.
I've been
All
watching
right,
too much
well-
Midnight Boys, or listening to too much Midnight Boys, and picking up their lingo.
All right, cool. So with that, we go into Chapter 8, Family Matters. We circle around to call Make Wen, of whom is pregnant. It also brings a shocking revelation. Eni was pregnant with Lan's child, and she found out about 2 weeks before his death. She ultimately sent him a letter, of course, believing that it to be his child at that point. But after a conversation that Wen has with Hilo about family, he agrees to let Nicholas and Eni come back to KCON. We get more development on that sort of element to the story a little bit later in this week. But overall, what do you guys think of this moment from Wen and sort of the confrontation about family and sort of the way that it circles around that in a big way from Make Wen's perspective?
We find out about 2 babies because
Mhm.
Wen is pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first we found out about that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Surprise.
I feel like she's gaining confidence, like with her role within the clan, and so it's like giving her more confidence to speak up to Hilo, and that happens throughout this week's chapters. And he actually encourages at one point, which is cool. But yeah, I like this. Like Make Wen's like kind of coming into her own here a lot more, and I hope that continues.
To repeat the word and maybe just ask this to Aaron, is she no longer a vessel? Have we escaped vessel status?
She's a pregnant vessel later.
Well, now too.
I mean, as a character, come on.
No, I like
get it.
Wen a lot. I
Mhm.
agree with what Ben just said. That, I like that she has agency and a way to make her feel fulfilled and like she's helping the clan.
Yeah. And I think that we get into some of those finer details, I think, a little bit later. But part of the thing that I really like about this is like there are a number of reveals, but none of it is like overtly. None of like what I grasp in this chapter is like overtly textual, right? Like Hilo is going to be a dad. He's already an uncle suddenly, like overnight, basically. And we get this new layer on top of Hilo's character with every decision that he's making, where it's like, now you're also a father, but you have the responsibility to the clan as the pillar. So there's a lot of extra complexity there, especially with the sort of knowing trap and mess that he's going to be walking himself into in the e150 Islands. What do you guys think of that?
I mean, it's the reassurances that he gives are not reassuring at all. Like no, your brother will be there. Look, no, now I'd get to worry about both of you. It was a perfect response from her and goes unchecked, or not unchecked. Hilo just kind of ignores it at that point, which was frustrating. But what else could he do? Like, he does have to conduct this business. But
it's like Lion King. I feel like I have to do a lot of Lion King quotes. I laugh in the face of danger.
You've definitely thrown out the Lion King references.
Sorry, I haven't seen it in years. It really scarred me for life.
It's totally fair. There's this other side too of like, and it kind of goes unsaid, but of like, Khal Du walked a similar path and ultimately died and didn't even make it to be a pillar, to be a dad for everyone else. And so there's some of that, I think, that's constantly lingering in the background. We even get a dose of it with not necessarily fully, but just even we can approach that thought because Lan doesn't get to be the father to his kid that we're now made aware of. So you can start to see some sort of cascading generational tendencies among the Greenbones.
And yeah, and this is just like, this fits who Hilo is. Like, yeah, he should be safer or whatever, but he's just not going to be. That's not his personality. That's not who he is as a leader. And if he wants a family, like, these risks are inherent. So I think it's just part of the acceptance and like,
yeah,
recognizing like that's who you married at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Also, though, I feel like Hilo is right not to be super worried because just because of like where they're going and how much power just like he and Tar alone pack, and then they have 4 other guys with them, you know.
Yeah, he's not super second guessing it for sure. I'm just thinking in the back of my head, that's where like these thoughts start to enter, is like, what about sort of the longevity as a father? Like, those questions have to come into the back of your head in the moment every time you walk into a room that you might not walk out of. So the final note that I wanted to kind of punctuate this chapter with is also the first moment in which Wen and Hilo meet many years ago, when Hilo showed up on the doorstep with Ken and Tar and had dinner with the family. And in the back of her mind, Wen knew that she was going to marry him because of the way that, despite her heritage and sort of her place in society as a Stone Eye, he didn't treat her any differently, didn't tug on his ear, didn't do anything at all, made eye contact, treated her like a person. And so you can kind of see those butterflies starting even back then, which is just nice. It's cute. It's a good way to, I think, end and punctuate this chapter.
Very sweet.
She had a crush. As a person who had an older brother, there were many times where I knew I was going to marry one of my brother's friends, but it never worked out.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Had crushes on my sister's friends for sure. Yeah. Older
But as
sister.
like a, young girl, you're like, marriage?
Yeah.
Marriage?
It's fair. That's a good point. That does kind of add the sort of layer of childishness, which I had not thought of. Wow, that tequila shot is really hitting me. All right, clearly we're good.
He's
all right.
wasted.
Crossland drunk on his own podcast. What the fuck?
Mother
unprofessional.
The podcast is all about drinking.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Crossland, when have I ever gotten drunk on this show?
You don't want me to answer that question. I can start to catalog the episodes.
There are lots.
All right. I think that's it with chapter 8.
Yep.
Chapter 9. The e150 and his half-bones. Hilo and his hand-picked crew traveled to Taialuhaya, the largest of the e150 islands, to retrieve his cousin Taihi from the crime lord and jade smuggling kingpin Zapunyo. After a terse exchange where Hilo puts the Yuian in his place, he ultimately leaves with Taihi, but not before there's some confrontation with local police. So when we start this chapter, I think this demonstrates just some more of the thoughtfulness of Hilo and in his role as Pillar and his role as Horn, and how he picks and chooses this team to bring to this mission.
Yes.
I was really excited to get exposed to a new set of people, and one of which has the same name as the protagonist from 3 of the books we've already read, which I was kind of excited about. Vin.
Who? Oh. First last series.
I was not paying that much attention. I should have.
Wait, who's Vin?
Vin from Mistborn.
Mistborn. Yep. I was like, that wasn't right. Oh, I was thinking of Matza. What? Monskero Mercado?
Yeah.
Monza.
Yeah.
Fuck. See how I forget things immediately?
That's even book 4. Anyway.
Oh, Jesus.
I do have to say, the name of this chapter got me super hyped up. And I know we got a rationale for the term half bones pretty quickly, but until we got to that point, I was so sure that there was some dude with jade embedded in his bones or something like that.
Shit.
I thought it was some fucked up augmentation that he had done to himself. I don't know. My mind was going wild with it.
It was the opposite. They're half
Yeah.
half bones because
Bakers.
they're
It's like a slur. Yeah.
wearing the fake jade. Didn't one of you say you would wear fake jade? Yeah.
I did, just to see what your reaction was for this moment, because I did want to kind of play it out inside of that to be like, what would you think of that concept? And I kind of wanted to pick your brain before we got there. But yeah, I said that I would wear
Cross,
Bluffer's jade.
what was my reaction
I
when I
literally
heard
did.
that?
Oh, you texted me and you went, what the fuck, dude?
It was soft.
Super aggressive. Yeah.
I was like, what the? I was like, I might have to leave the podcast. Who is this man?
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
I
was like, no,
Cross
I
isn't
was
a
doing it
faker.
intentionally. Yeah, I was doing it intentionally.
Before there's one thread I want to pull on in a second, PJ, is that meeting a new people bit. But right kind of in the beginning of the chapter, there was a little exchange which isn't as insightful as the quotes we usually pull from the reading. But I just liked it for some reason. And that was, waiting for them next to the tarmac were 2 white rental cars with drivers, which Hilo had asked Tar to arrange alongside a welcome party of 10 armed men, which he had not, but was unsurprised to see. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I like that.
The other side of this that I think is funny is that they're just white rental cars. Every other time we've had a car described, it's been by the brand.
Yeah.
And this is brandless.
Which made
I feel like
sense.
this whole chapter-
for brand.
Chrysler minivan.
This whole chapter was just straight out of a movie. I feel like I've seen this entire scene before.
Yeah, it was great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was excited.
Yeah.
I really liked Sapunio.
Really?
Yeah.
Speak on it. Talk about it.
I've got kind of a question that relates immediately to Zapunio. I want to get, so obviously we know that we kind of have the immediate comparison between the Calls and the general Green Bones and the Yakuza. Do you have another mobster group or gangster group that you would associate and compare the Yuiwins with and Zapunio's crew? Anything that comes to mind?
In this book?
Yeah, just in general, the vibe that you get. I get something very specific.
I got
Vibes.
Colombian
Same.
narco vibes.
For me, it's Colombian cartel. It's Colombian cartel.
Oh, I thought you meant
or Mexican
similar to
cartel.
something in the book.
No.
Oh, no, sorry. Real world. Sorry, I was comparing the
Yeah.
Green Bones to the Yakuza. Yeah. For me, it's Colombia and Mexico were my go-to comparisons.
That was definitely what I thought of first as well. Or a small island nation ruled by a dictator, a very small one.
Could be Cuba.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Zapunio was
he making a lot of sense to you?
Well, he's working with what he's got, and he's not quick to anger or he seemed very sneaky.
He was described as way too ugly for me to like him.
Oh, you don't like uglies?
No.
Listen, it's a powerful psychological impact. What's beautiful is good hypothesis.
Oh, no. Way too ugly for me to like it. That's so funny.
I mean,
Just
the fact
being
that
honest.
Ben interacts with all of us now, that has to boost our own
The standard
confidence.
is dropped.
Speak for
Oh,
yourself.
wait.
My
Like-
confidence was already. Listen, you gotta look in the mirror and see at least an 8. Otherwise, like, what are we doing here?
Just keeping it real, man.
But
Just
I
keeping it
did
real.
think he said something that Hilo should consider, which is that Hilo's view of Jade is small-minded. And I think everyone on KCON's view of Jade is small-minded, except for Aitmata. So, the world's going to keep spinning, and they need to figure out how to, like, modernize and get with the times,
That's probably really
But
good
at the
advice.
same time, backing up those claims are looking at his fucking compound that is all like been bought and paid for by illegal
Stolen
jade
jade.
smuggling. Like, he's fleecing his pockets way more than what like Hilo would want to just give into, knowing full well that he would just continue doing that and benefiting personally, individually, from any sort of trade deal that would go on.
But I don't think that makes Aaron wrong, though, or Zapunio wrong in that concept, where it's like he is kind of dated in the idea. Like, yes, there is some hypocrisy there in the way that he's lined his pockets, but I don't think that's any different than the idea that it's like keeping it on the island is deluding yourself, which is basically what he's saying in a much kinder fashion.
Mhm.
Kinder, and then sending, please. I
Well,
do think he's sneaky.
in the negotiation.
Sneaky. I wouldn't be surprised if he was working with somebody else. I'm not saying the mountain, but somebody else. And I think, oh wait, that's next chapter. I'll say that next chapter.
One thing that stood out to me is when they're talking about the Yuian Islands and the differences between them and Taytan and how they fared differently under the Shatarian occupation and conquest than Taytan because of the lack of jade in their country. And it reminded me of the contrast that's drawn between the Tals and the Taj. I forget how to say it, but written out, I always say
Taiji?
Taijis.
Taiji.
And the Tals, how like,
Taiji?
Taiji.
Tehi.
Taiji?
but anyway, on the
Taiji.
surface, like, they're very similar and could be
Taiji?
rivals of one another, but because of like a random occurrence of luck, basically, one group is much more powerful and influential than the others.
That's some good book reading there.
Thank you, boss.
Is that one of your canned
That's-
responses? You need to save that and just play it whenever you have like a filler.
That is going on some kind of a buzzer internally for the Words
Like,
Whiskey Show.
There's a snake in my boot. Pulling
Exactly.
the string.
Ben's little tug string of quotes. What's another one? We need
Now
another
that's
Ben
some
quote.
good book reading right there.
Is this us actually
It was.
discussing getting like a soundboard for the show?
I don't have one in my closet. Don't worry about it. I can repurpose my old MIDI board. It's fine.
I think that was a great comparison, Thomas, and I did not get
you.
that subtext, but I think you're spot on. I love
I mean,
that.
I've had to read it a billion times, so that's probably the only reason I picked up on it.
You're pretty smart.
That's another one.
There's so much culturally, I think, that's introduced in this chapter as well that I just adored. I'm just curious where you guys stood on a lot of that. Like, just finally visiting another country. I mean, we get another one in like 2 chapters, but being outside of the city for once.
We learned that you can have 2 women in one night, but not 3.
Wow. Yeah. I was like,
True.
geez, guys.
You tried to have 3. What a little whore. Taiji, whatever the fuck his name is. Taj Mahal.
I didn't even bother to write his first name because I just didn't feel like it. I was just like, who cares? Insignificant.
That piece of shit.
And it's just a funny
Yeah.
rule, though. Just like, if you have 2 women, 3, right to jail,
3.
right away.
To right to jail. That is the meme. Right to jail. There's your meme, PJ.
And
All right, give me a second.
Tehi is, it's his fault that all this Zapunio Hilo meeting even happened. So, like, I don't blame Zapunio for taking this opportunity that fell into his lap.
Right, yeah, he's just taking advantage of the moment. I mean, yeah, I can see where he's coming from with his offer, but he has to know, one, Hilo's not going to take that. So I'm like, is there some kind of ulterior motive going on here? Like,
I have one. It's in the next chapter.
Okay, I'm looking forward to hearing that.
Anything else, Thomas? What you
Yes, I was just giving a beat, taking a pause.
Yeah.
Tut, tut, tut. Speaking of Zapunio's offer, Hilo pretty ferociously rejects it, right? He's not having it. He's not about it. Do we think that Hilo and Zapunio are as different as Hilo thinks that they are?
I think Hilo and Zapunio are similar. They're clearly different in that Hilo has like legitimacy behind.
They're not as different as Hilo wants to think that they are, but they are different, I think.
Right. So it's like an Espenian might look at them and be like, they're the same, but
right.
The nuances of the countries, Hilo's like, this guy is nothing like me at all.
I think that's well put.
Isn't this kind of the same assumption that is made often, I feel, in the East? I mean, isn't this often the thing where people get drugged together by cultural groups without like actually having or sharing similar culture? I feel like that's kind of what Fonda's pointing to here, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Probably, yeah. I was looking at like a book-to-book comparison, kind of more like
fair enough, yeah.
The Mountain and No Peak are constantly accusing the other of being barbaric, and it's just like another instance of that where it's like pretty similar setups going on, and just because you guys have the more formal training and were blessed to not have been basically kidnapped and driven from your homeland into Shatar, and then now you're half bones, like you just look down on them just because of where they were born, basically. And he's like a nice little messy ball of hypocrisy and craziness going on.
Yeah. And Hilo even like talks about that at one point, like how much it's like they're just running a clan here.
Yeah, like they're playing at it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But I wonder how much of these things we have like similar criticisms of for No Peak had we not occupied their points of view and like understood the nuances and the reasoning behind all of these things. Like, would we see the violence on the streets and the sort of use of the Lantern Men and giving up territory and all of this as self-serving and power hungry and totalitarian if we didn't occupy their minds and their perspectives?
It's one of the big questions of the book in general.
Yeah, what gets to me a little bit, and we're not quite there, but in the next chapter when we have the showdown with the police, is Hilo talking about, like, we don't kill Jadeless unless they side with our enemies. Paraphrasing, but that's the relevant part. And, like, they didn't ever declare sort of alliance or otherwise with the Zapunio. They didn't have a formal like declaration of enemy-ship. Like the line in the sand is drawn when they decide to start killing them and decide that they're enemies right there, basically.
Yeah, just we'll definitely talk about this in the next chapter, but the quote, Greenbones don't kill those without Jade unless they break our laws or side with our enemies.
We gotta wait for the next chapter. I've been waiting.
Yep. Aaron has been patiently waiting.
Sorry, I jumped the line.
You do that. It's okay.
That's all I got.
All right. With that, we go to Chapter 10, A Ridiculous Waste. After No Peak leaves Zapunio's estate, they quickly find themselves face down by corrupt policemen from the island on their way to their plane. After giving them an out, Hilo and his Greenbones make short work of them, suffering mostly minor injuries. Hilo has a conversation with the new Finger and Andon's old friend, Lot Jin Jr., being that this is the first time that he's killed anyone, as he's shaken. His dad's name is Lot Jin and was referred to as Lot Jin Sr. He's not referred to at this point as Junior because his dad's dead. I think he's the only one that's alive, but they are both Lot Jin. Anyway, but I mean, this chapter is intense. It's quick. It's a great follow-up. You get kind of the nice political conversation, then you get the fallout of that conversation and sort of the truth of the matter. And we continue that conversation about Tar and sort of his insecurities right off the bat in this one, and what he would have done or what he wouldn't have done. And I find that also fascinating, as Tar seems to, where Ken seems to be adjusting into his role, Tar seems to be having a little bit more difficulty.
Because he keeps fucking up.
That's not his fault. It's Barrow's fault. Okay, what I've been wanting to say was that Zapunio could have set this whole thing up because he needed those policemen like out of his way, and that was like his way of cleaning house.
I think he already owned them though.
I know, but like he clearly like knew they
like
were all
two
going to
birds,
die.
one stone.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like it was some kind of like PR play or something like that, because they're talking about how like it was spread all over the place, like it was making like international news that these green bones like massacred cops or whatever. Or it's like some kind of play where he wants Hilo to underestimate him, because like what I don't get is like you send these cops against green bones, like did he actually expect them to kill them?
No, I think he for sure knew the cops were all going to die. So yeah, it's either the PR or he wanted those cops out of the way for some reason.
Yeah. That feels like almost like a totally different story, but I don't know. I definitely see where you're coming from. I think that is a good idea too. But there's something there that like, I don't know, maybe he wants Hilo to think he's stupid so that like Hilo underestimates him later on here in the story. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't imagine that he actually thought these cops would kill these guys.
No, I don't think he
So
did.
that seems pointless.
Seems like a death sentence either way.
Right.
Ooh, thank you, Thomas. You're right. I was wrong. I thought that he was Lot Jr. I'm thinking of a different character. He is Lot Penshugan is his father's name. Good work. Thanks for detectiving that in the
No
background
worries.
for me.
It just, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. Penshugan. There's another junior senior, though, and I'm failing to remember the name at the moment. It's going to come to me in a minute, but I know that he's a finger. Anyway, but yeah, I love the way obviously the scene goes down. It's bloody, it's violent, it's got that Magneto action vibe to it, and it for the first time in a while feels like we really get a full sense again of the Greenbone abilities and powers without having them sort of forced into our face in a way. I don't love like immediately, I don't feel the desire to or the need to necessarily, but one of the criticisms that I have of Mistborn between books is that necessity that Brandon felt to write a scene in the first 30 pages that reminded you of the magic system right away. And this is just so much more gradual and normal and natural and feels right for the characters in the story that I really appreciate it from a comparison standpoint.
Wanda really just likes to dole out little tastes of the powers, like, and I'm just like,
Are we drugs? It's just like a little dose of drugs.
Are we ever gonna get like a full on like Jason the Dragon hit of this stuff, or what? You know, that's
She's leaving you wanting more.
I know.
I think
Keeps you
the
reading.
naturalness of like everything, it makes this series so immersive.
Yeah,
and that's why I love it so much, at least.
But that is how violence is. Like violence is very short, quick, brutal. Like that is true to life. So I like the way that she writes it. It's just like,
Yeah, this isn't a Avengers flick.
right. I know.
Mm-hmm.
Pew 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 pew.
All right, Martin
It's
Scorsese.
closer to Matrix in that way, where it feels very much like he jumps out of the car, he whips out the Talon knife,
Yeah.
30 bullets come in, he kind of just puts them down and in different directions, spraying them, catching some people. You know,
Ooh,
it's
I
great.
like the knife
walking out
throwing.
slowly.
The knife throwing was
Yeah.
the coolest part.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Which we know he'd been working on
Our
too,
boy Lot.
recently.
Loot. And like you said, Frost, just how cool it is. He just walks out all by himself. Does he know? And then we see like again, he
tries.
really good at this. Like he just has this instinctual level of deftness as a horn and at this combat stuff, where he's like, you know, it looks cool. We're doing the green bone thing of like, hey, you guys can walk away from this if you want, but also it's easier to deflect if all the bullets are focused at me.
Yeah, that was interesting too. But if you came a
Meanwhile-
little too close.
Tahi in the car, just being a little crying, sobbing piece of shit.
They're here for me. I slept with 3 women.
That's so funny.
What will you do, cousin?
Like
What
they're
will you
most
do to save
assuredly
me?
not here for you, dude.
Yeah. Ha. No one cares about you.
Come on. Yeah, it's a great one. Anything else on the action components here that we enjoyed? Anything else on the mind?
I
Cool.
thought the whole getting on an airplane. I keep forgetting what like time period we're in. I'm like, oh yeah,
You can smoke on the airplanes, though. We learned that with Andon, so.
Yeah. So.
Also, doesn't he have a grapefruit soda too?
I was
Yeah,
thank you.
mango.
Yeah.
I
Mango.
meant to say, for whatever reason, the mango soda
Sounds fantastic.
brought me out of it so much, and I don't know
really,
why.
it did.
It was
It
just
did bring
like-
me out of it too.
Just the like, it's so. I don't know why. Just like
just
how
felt random.
normal a
It seemed
soda
like they would
is.
be drinking alcohol.
Yeah, I guess like it was just
Hoji feels like it would have been right.
Yeah.
Sure.
right. Just because it's like I know there's like cars and all these other modern things that we have and like real world things, but just the soda for some reason just feels so like next level normal that I was just like, it was like surreal. It'd be like, I don't know, seeing like a celebrity doing something normal kind of is the vibe that it gave me.
So I kind of had the opposite reaction to it because
I
like
thought it
they're
worked
on
well.
this private jet. It felt like a luxury item to
That
be
was-
able to get a soda. Like
It's not a super
I more just
nice
meant, like-
jet, but it is a
I was gonna say
private
it's
jet.
prop
Like
plane,
it
right?
does rattle their brains while
right,
they're
fair,
in it.
but it's their like their own. It's not a commercial airliner, I guess.
This is a
is like-
private plane.
I meant
but
normal as like we have it
Oh,
and it's
a
a fantasy world type thing,
Got
which that's why I was getting at
Do
with like
we
I know
have
there's the
mango
other
food?
normal stuff in it. Like but we have
Hell yeah,
planes and
brother.
fats machines and all that bullshit. But I don't know why the mango soda. I was just like, what the fuck?
Mangoes are fantastic.
You're wrinkling my brain.
It was a prop plane, so I mean, it would have had a propeller. So it wasn't like a super nice private jet.
And then I immediately thought of Blue's plane from whatever the show was that he was in. The
Tailspin?
Jungle Book. Oh my God. Tailspin. Thank you. And I was immediately like transported to that moment. And that's the only thing I can imagine this plane being is the Tailspin plane. So here we are. That said, once they're on the plane, there's one final thing that I'd love to talk about in this chapter, and that is the conversation of what Hilo manages to do with Lot. I really appreciate kind of the way that he not only kind of secures him in, again, I think that what Hilo is doing is brilliant. In many hands, it is manipulation, but Hilo means it very genuinely, and it comes from the soul, and it's part of the culture, so it all works. But I really appreciate the way that he approaches Lot, especially considering what he's just done and the way that he feels about it in the moment. What do you guys think of the conversation with Lot and his old buddy?
Agreed. It's like it is genuine, but also manipulation. I don't know, but it's like good-hearted manipulation, kind of,
Mhm.
but also not. In that he's just like bringing him in closer because he knows he's going to need him. Like I don't know. It's interesting.
It's the culture. It's
Yeah.
ice show. Like I get it, and I'm more than willing to like tag that in for the reason that it feels that way. But it's definitely the same sort of like gang guilt manipulation. This
Yeah.
is how you get in deeper. It's just been embedded in the culture for so long that it's different. So like I understand why, but
I think the point that I appreciated the most out of this was Hilo kind of straddling that line of understanding that Lot is going to be speaking out in a way that isn't typical for a finger talking to the pillar, but not being too heavy-handed in correcting, but still like saying like, hey, look at me when you're talking to me, and like remember the respect that I deserve, or that you are supposed to give me. But I'm not coming down on you as hard as like I should, because I understand you just killed the dude for the first time. Like there's a compassion without completely giving up his position of power within this gang.
right.
Is Lot the one that Andon had a crush on?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I think that Lot's guilt, it makes me think Lot's gonna like go sneak away and hang out with Andon, and give up his Jade.
He's got a family to take care of. I don't think so.
Uh,
Ooh, are we feeling a bet coming on?
yes.
I don't know. It
I'll take
seemed
it.
like it. It seemed like it. All right.
Thomas shook
We've
his
got
head
opposing
no,
sides.
but-
Honestly, I'm not a fan of the bets. I've come down on that side of it.
All right. So we've got for Ben, you're saying that he's sticking around for family, yeah?
Yes, and he's going to get killed tragically
When?
And Andon will never forgive Hilo.
in this book.
Whoa.
And Aaron, are you on the side of
This is my
He's going to run off with Andon or
Yeah.
run off to Espinia with Andon?
run off with Andon.
Hmm.
Not necessarily Espinia, wherever he is.
By the end of the book?
Man.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
There's so much book.
All right, I'm going to take a third
I love this.
view of this.
All right. A third take. We love a third take.
He convinces Andon to come back.
Oh.
That's a better take. Oh, well, I've staked my flag.
And
All right.
go green again.
With his words or what?
I
His
mean,
other-
words to start.
his-
Were you
I don't know.
suggesting
body
the alternate
parts.
was his body?
Oh,
Well, maybe his death motivates Andon to come back to the clan. I don't know. I was trying to combine Ben and PJ's take.
All right.
All right.
I mean, that's a good answer, but I think he actively, verbally convinces
Not
Andon
orally.
to come back. All right. Well, let's go with orally just to cover the basis.
Fuck. All right. It's in the
Oh,
notes.
boy.
Locked it in.
I wanted to say going green reminds me of Kip in Lightbringer in Brent Weeks. What's that series called?
It's called Lightbringer.
It's called Lightbringer.
No,
yeah.
that's one of the books. Oh, the whole series is?
It's also, the whole series is called
Tight.
Lightbringer.
Going Green Goblin.
I haven't read it yet.
Jesus.
This is one of the
It's one of my
4
favorite
books that you put
series.
on the list for me. I know.
I have a
It's on my
list?
list to read for you. Yeah, you gave me like some books where you're like, you have to read these.
Oh, wow.
Lightbringer
So
was,
I read all
I
the
think
books
the
you
one
told
that
me
I
to
had.
read, but you didn't read the books I told you to read?
it was not that.
Let's
it was
play real friends.
at least 6 months ago. Yeah, it's my bad.
All right.
I don't want free time. I'll get to it next after I finish this Brandon Sanderson book. Ah!
I heard he was a weirdo.
Silly frugal wizard.
Who's a weirdo?
Tut, tut, tut. I was just making a joke. I don't want to get the Sanderson fans up in arms.
Hive.
Oh, they're a,
I was
they're
referencing that stupid article that the guy wrote. That's
a
all.
strong knit hive.
Yes, indeed.
All
All right.
I thought the
That's it
article was
for
funny.
Chapter 10. I
Chap-
enjoyed bits of it.
Chapter 11. Port Massey. Andon arrives in Port Massey to begin his stay with the Han family and gain his Espenian education. Months pass, and one day Andon decides to walk home from school, only to get caught up in a tribute payment. And the chapter ends with pickup. The chapter closes with the revelation via stunning display that green bones exist in Port Massey.
They do exist.
So there's a lot going on in this chapter that was kind of, I felt it was like kind of
Andon.
hard to summarize because it's like a lot of like just stuff in Andon's head happening more so than
Yeah.
action.
A lot of sad boy Andon.
A lot of cultural shock that, Andon arrives in Espenia. He appears Espenian and then gets a nice home cooking with the family.
Yeah, they're nice.
They were nice. I like that part, and I like that he's doing odd jobs for them.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's very cute.
That's a nice boy.
Such a nice boy.
Very nice boy.
I think that's the upbringing within the clan and the schooling that he's gone through and the like morals that he's gained are what set him apart in their eyes of all the foreign exchange students that they've hosted. He's the only one that's done anything like this, and it feels natural to him. It feels like this is something that I should be doing. And I really like that about Andon and his personality and convictions and sense of morality and honor and giving back to those that are raising him in whatever capacity.
I like that they did a little sneak diss in at him too when they're referencing that. They're like, all our other exchange students were busy exploring the city and like absorbing the culture, and you're here helping us.
Burn.
And it's also, I took it. I mean, it is.
I
part
love
of
my
his
parents
upbringing.
that I don't have that are dead.
it's part of the upbringing, but it's like also his like rigorous self-flagellation of he has to be perfect. He has to do all these things, which it does make sense, but it's just like another example of tough life for the kid.
Do you think Andon like works to like earn his keep because he had to do the same with the calls? He's always kind of been a guest and never had a real home.
At least in his own perception, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's like not capable of like letting himself feel like he doesn't have to do that. You know, he always like has this made up sense of like, I'm a burden on everybody all the time.
And he has like,
that's kind of, I hate the way you said
weird.
that.
It's perfect though, because he has the self-imposed, he's a self-imposed exile.
Yeah.
Like when he arrives in class.
In every way, shape, and form.
He arrives in the class and he's like, I'm not here to make friends. He's like, okay. You are though.
Yeah.
Like, you're
literally all four of you had different takes on the same idea all at once, and they were all uniquely funny and completely different and accurate. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, I love sitting here with my little hanky that PJ bought me that's got Jack and Sally on it, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
He's just like me for real.
Before Christmas. Right, just like me for real. Wonder how people describe me. My quiet time. Am I the sad boy? Am I the
Eeyore?
Fuck.
It does kind of put
on me
perspective just to roll past what Crossland's sad boy is saying, and completely ignore it.
Shut up, Cross.
As you should. Cut. Sad.
Crossland Emery, am I right?
It does kind of make you wonder how much of this like burden that Andon has put upon himself is actually valid, and his time with the calls and his feeling of being an outsider, despite them referring to him as a brother and like referring to him as a call unceasingly, how much of that was like the way that he viewed it as an outsider was completely unfounded, I think. And he's just repeating that sort of feeling in this new environment.
PJ, I'm a little confused. I just might need you to restate it in a different way. So you're basically saying like he either consciously or unconsciously didn't really believe the "you're our brother" overtures, right? Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing to square about his character. Is like, yes, his feelings are valid. Like all of his feelings that he's feeling, they're valid. They're coming from a place that is reasonable. But at the same time, it's like he does freaking just like wallow in them. Like,
yeah, he's definitely an 18-year-old wallowing in his feelings. That's
all up
for sure. Yeah.
And you're just kind of sometimes just going to be like, snap out of it, you know?
Take some Z.
He needs the opposite
Slap
of that.
some of that Jade back on.
He needs some of the berries.
Yeah.
Berries and cream.
Before we get into the later parts of the chapter, our guy, Mr. Hyun, he's like, my son getting a doctorate in history, useless degree. Tough look for me. I was like, my dude.
Shots fired.
You definitely should feel called out there.
As a person that was going for an English degree for 2 years, I feel you on that. I gave it up, though.
His parents actively stopped him from getting an English degree.
Yeah.
I feel you on that.
My dad had an English degree. He's an attorney now.
Well, good for him.
So he might be like the only lawyer that knows how to spell.
Actually, it was like English and history.
Nice. A lot of.
I don't know why that was so funny to me. But the way that Ben said that, it's just
Ben's
peak
mean.
bullshittery.
Okay. So we did a nice little dump on Isthmian culture. We learn about the cruise / boss Kromner, and I was curious what you all thought about that.
See, I don't like these gang members.
This seemed like a less complicated, just street gang.
They're just assholes.
Yeah, being dickheads.
This is the Peaky Blinders for sure.
Yeah.
This is also the birth of Andon becoming like Spider-Man.
Go on.
Ooh.
Like he's seeing
You want
crime
to go on
and
that a
he's
little
like,
bit more? Yeah.
And then he's like ashamed that he didn't do anything to stop it, even though he could have.
And then he saw a cute green bone, and he's like,
He's like,
also
look at those calves.
those knotted calves.
Ooh.
He's like, I need to also be a superhero. I like this street level. Maybe this is how he redeems himself. He becomes Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Your friendly neighborhood greenbone.
With great power.
That's great responsibility.
I have a conspiracy corner that I cannot share because I obviously know what happens, but I just, invented a conspiracy that if we had been doing this and I was one of the non-knowers, I would be bringing up right now, and it's so good.
I've got one to bring up.
Bring it up,
one to
PJ.
bring up about this green bone, and the fact that they intentionally and specifically mention that they don't see any green on him.
Okay.
Speed
I
on
think
it.
that there's an alternative way to get Jade abilities other than actually having Jade touching your skin.
What if it's just under his clothes?
I mean, that's the easy answer. I don't think that's the answer.
Aaron dismantled your conspiracy with like an Allen wrench, and the whole thing fell apart. Like,
So yeah, those knotted calves.
Yeah, do we think this guy is
naughty
like
calves.
just... They didn't really say like if he was Kekinese or Aspinian, did they? Or did they?
I think he's Kekinese.
He is Kekinese.
I
And
don't know
he
if they-
saves a woman. He's Spider-Man.
Right. Yeah.
The guy on the bike.
Yeah. Yeah. He's doing some Spider-Man shit. At first I was kind of like, is this like a guy that is watching Andon, but it doesn't seem like it. Seems like he's just a regular guy hanging out in Aspinia, happened to save a lady at the exact right time. I don't know. Is he on Shine?
Maybe.
Or is he just like a traveling green bone?
Well, I think it's small-minded of Andon to think that there aren't green bones elsewhere in the world.
I also thought that was weird. I was like, why is that surprising to you?
Like, there's so many people on KCON. Of course, a few will leave. Maybe it's because they can't get more Jade if they leave,
And you get your Jade from the clan, so it's like...
Yeah, or from fighting on KCON.
Yeah.
So isn't the whole like really specific thing about the Kekinese is that they're not super sensitive to it?
That's
And,
the
like
Abu
that
Fed.
allows them to harness it, as opposed to like, since Andon is half Hispanian, he's like particularly sensitive, so he's more like open to the like Jade fever.
I thought they were just taught, basically, and exposed to it over time.
there seems to be something relating to tolerance and bloodline or culture or like
It
descendants.
does seem like there's families that are, there's thin-blooded families versus thick-blooded.
Yeah.
Like they even get into that in the last chapter a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With the
definitely
mountain
comes up.
families that they're talking about.
Yes, all the inheritors,
Yeah.
the Cobans and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, we've already kind of touched on it, but I was wondering what everyone thought that the presence of at least one green bone and presumably green bones in Port Massey, like, what do we think that means? What do we think? Is it like a larger thing? Is it one-off?
That to me feels like the Aspinians are gathering green bones of their own, maybe.
Oh, really? I kind of saw it as more of like a one-off, just like for Andon's growth to realize like, oh, okay, like the world's bigger than I thought it was. Aspinia isn't all that I had made it out to be.
Do you think Naughty Calves is going to show up again?
We all hope so.
He said, looks like a bag of ropes, my boy.
I like your calves.
Got really great calves.
What that thing do?
Do you think he's going to become like a mentor of sorts?
No,
No. A lover?
I think that maybe it was just, I don't know.
Happenstance.
Happenstance. I'm not making any more bets today.
I feel like he might
Doesn't need to be
show
a
up
bet.
again and, show Andon that there's other pathways. But at the end of the
The whole
day,
issue is
Andon doesn't want Jade. Yeah. Right.
because he turns into a green goblin.
Right.
He turns into
More like
Gollum.
a green Dr. Manhattan is kind of what I picture.
That's a pretty good. That's a
Green
cool
Dutchman,
picture.
Yeah. Pop.
I like it.
Pop. See points. Yeah.
One last thing that we kind of leapt over in our excitement to talk about, guy with the thick calves, is the discussion about the crews and the pit boss that I wanted to touch on. I think it kind of gets at what Hilo at least would perceive the differences between himself and Zapunyo to be as well. And so our guy, Mr. Hyun, again, once quote, Andin say, the crews aren't like the clans. All they care about is money. They never give, they only take. That store owner pays and pays, but gets nothing.
It's fucked up.
And that's why I think like our relationship with the Call family and the Greenbones that we've grown to love over this book and a quarter-ish is so complicated, because there is that like patriarchal, paternal, whatever, like parental relationship with the nation.
Right. Yeah, there's something there where they give back, and there's a sense of honor and duty to what they do.
Whereas this is more of a straight up
Take
quote
down.
unquote protection racket.
Yeah.
Where they're paying to protect themselves from the people they're paying. Like, pay us or we'll fuck up your shit.
Which is always just a great deal. I love paying protection rackets. It's my favorite thing.
I love collecting protection payments.
Happens a lot up there.
Thomas and I have been going around our cities,
Respective
He and I
communities.
I've been paying
across the
Thomas for
country
like a
weekly,
year
and,
now,
like,
and it's been bad. Thomas is extorting me.
It's actually my
Cut,
doppelganger.
probably.
Yeah, this now it's
No,
interstate
no,
wire fraud. For legal reasons, that was a joke.
All right. Speaking of, we got a YouTube strike today after an episode, which is just a fun bit. I've been dealing with the legal system today. Anyway, copyright.
Cross, before we move on, can you read my conspiracy theory to yourself that I texted you and then confirm whether it is a banger or not?
I always love saving these two for like final episodes. We did this with PJ in the end of thing. I like it. I do like it. I think you're right. That's fun. Okay. Nice and skeptical and curious for everyone out there. You're going to have to wait until the very end of this series to figure out what Thomas texted me about the Spider-Man thoughts. But
alternatively,
absolutely not.
You
There's
could
spoilers all over
join our Patreon and look at the No PJs Allowed zone, where Cross and Thomas
post stuff.
could probably post that.
True.
Or if you want to be real cool, we could go to the No Crosses Allowed. Oh, that's PJ didn't go in that one. Never mind. No PJ Allowed. It's the same place.
I can't believe you guys made a no crosses zone.
Do you-
Anyway,
it was your brother.
yeah, right. Of course it was. That makes sense.
This
All
is
right.
why we stand.
With that, Chapter 12, Necessary Actions. We visit Gohai, a suburb of Janloon and the home of the Black Tail clan, who has allegiances to neither clan for these serious negotiations. The pillars exchange verbal jousts, accounting for past wrongs committed by the mountain against Snow Peak via the KJA and others, as well as jointly aiming to eliminate smuggling, as well as handing off territory to level the playing field. After all is concluded, Ait makes a tempting but ultimately offensive offer of a clan merger. There's a lot in this chapter. Again, I love the return to some of the politicking that we get to see. We start to see some of the scheming kind of up front in a big way. But the one note that I didn't put in the summary that I just wanted to say is the fact that they're like flanked by penitents to make this almost a religious negotiation to make sure that they don't break Aisho, I find fascinating.
Yes.
That is a cool concept.
I liked too seeing the Black Tail clan, like the smaller clan.
In control of the burbs.
Yeah. But how the burbs were farmland, but now are like legit or suburban sprawl suburbs.
Like it was a city, but now it is a suburb.
No, it was a farm.
Yeah, all that I meant was like it was considered a separate township.
Oh,
and
right,
now
right,
it's
right.
like it's just been wrapped into the city itself. Yeah.
I see.
You're right, it was a farm.
And so it's always cool. The more we learn about different groups of people, it expands the series and the world. So I liked seeing them.
Yeah. I appreciate the small clan inclusion quite a bit. And I think it's very interesting that they've so delicately like threaded that needle for so long.
Yeah, they're doing a good job.
There's a quote here when they sit down to actually go into the negotiations. We're here because you expected to be in control of the city by now, and for everyone with the name of Call to be feeding worms, but that hasn't happened. He spread his hands and gave her a cold smile. Talk is for when violence fails. And this
Correct.
just kind of like gets, I mean, it's incredible. It's well done. And he gets the heart of the matter pretty quick in the center of this, especially considering Ait is kind of dancing and hiding behind words as much as she possibly can to not own up to the choices that she's made publicly. Just PR stunt after PR stunt seems to be Ait's deal.
Yeah, her playbook's getting old at this point.
So
Or maybe she's not showing her hands.
She's probably not.
Yeah.
the thing that was most sort of glaring to me was that they had to go, what was it, 50, 70 kilometers outside of the city limits in order to find neutral ground, when we know that there is ostensibly a neutral actual government operating within the city. Like, they couldn't go to City Hall or something like that.
I think they had to make it different than the last time that they tried to negotiate, which is why they did it this way. Because last time they did government negotiation, like they were using the government as an intermediary. I think this one is just separated in that degree where it's like, this is just you and I making the call for the country. Which is to say that the other ones, to your point, kind of were a sham.
Well, so are these.
I don't know. These seem legit. It seems like they
don't,
swore on
though.
Jade and
Immediately
country.
afterwards, they talk about how, like, that was for show. This is what's really going on.
Well, it's
Yeah, but
legit
it's not
for now until they can
Yeah, I think
find-
it's so legit.
Yeah,
there's
until
real
they can find a
utility
way
to
to-
this one.
wipe them out.
Yeah. This is a
Yeah.
real decision. It might be broken down the road. They expect it to be broken down the road. But for now, this is the truth. It's going to be manipulated as it is, as we see right at the end of the chapter and into the next chapter.
Right.
I mean, that part, to me, it says, like, we don't intend to uphold any of this. And that was to placate any like, official.
They're both still playing games. Like, the games haven't stopped.
Yeah, this is
It's
They're
so
just
chess
lying.
match.
They're
Well,
both lying.
So, in the next chapter, Hilo says we are abiding by this because we have to get the jade smuggling down. So, like, it's like a transition from a hot war to a cold war.
He says officially we're abiding by this, but to anybody other than, like, to anybody outside of this room right now, we're abiding by this, quote unquote. But
Yeah,
like, here's the
I was trying to make
actual
it clear.
plan. Like,
It's PR.
Yeah. It's in the future,
PR
though.
for everybody, including like lower level members of the clan, but like
Mhm.
the family does not at all intend to comply with any of the decisions made here.
The issue I have with what you're saying is the any of. I think it's big picture that's sort of correct, but like they are going to carry out the actions that they say they're not. That you're saying they're not going to.
Yeah, like they're giving up some.
Like they are, yeah, and they're going to
Land.
cooperate.
They like have terms where they are.
They're negotiating.
Yeah,
they accepted the
Yeah,
terms.
it's in bad faith. Like they're going to be doing these things that they negotiated to bad ends for the mountain. Like they're not doing it to further cooperation forever. They are doing it ultimately to flip the table in the mountain. But it's not like they're not going to do any of this, which is what happened in the first negotiation. That was entirely theater.
Mhm.
This one, it's
Okay.
like both sides know it's theater, but it's less so.
Okay.
It's not exclusively theater, I think would be, and I
Yeah.
love the hot Cold War comparison because it is like, this is an active conflict zone. Now we can like allow tourism back in and we can do other things that were previously blocked off. We're going to be a safe place for people
and
to
then
visit.
in the future, we'll
But we're
fuck you up.
Yeah, this is not to say that we're not going to turn a corner or be pulling some illegal shit though. Like, we're still gangs. Like, that's the reality of the situation. But they're trying to play by that ISO code versus before it was just the law, and that means less to them than ISO does.
Yeah. So, like, PJ, I would say you're right. Ultimately, it's bullshit. And, like, I guess at the end of the day, it's just a delay to getting as bullshit as the initial one was. But it's like, I don't know. There's just degrees to it, I guess. So, like, you're not wrong. It's just degrees.
There's levels to this shit.
Yeah. I was trying to find, there's another really great quote in here that kind of gets to the heart of this, which is like explaining Aisho to toddlers or something like that. Hilo says that's just so good. Yeah, preschoolers. Yeah. And I love that quote because it is basically like, all right, so we get that there's like this sort of level of courtesy that we're going to have here, and we should accept that because I'm done with your intolerant bullshit and the way you've been treating us and like treating our cultural law, which is definitely...
I have the quote if you want it.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, so the larger context is that he's talking about Andon specifically, and that if anything happens to him, he's going to blame the mountain clan.
Mm-hmm.
And then he concludes it with, we shouldn't have to spell out Aisho as if it's pickup, as if it's for preschoolers. But that's the way things seem to be these days.
Yeah. Which I think feeds into that, because I think there's a part of Hilo that would have agreed to this outright, or would have taken it outright. But he knows that Ait isn't, so he's got to play by Ait's game. I have a follow-up on a very different part of this question, and this is so feeding into the conspiracy corner, and so I'm so excited to just drop this little nugget right in front of you all. But what do you make of Woon attending behind Shay versus Hami as a choice?
Yeah. Aaron.
What?
What do you have to say?
Woon versus Hami.
Well, why would Hami
attending this meeting?
Isn't Woon the...
They're both kind of like
shadow?
right and left hand. Yeah.
I don't get what you're inferring by looking at me.
I'm just wondering what you're about to slander Woon with.
Oh, I didn't consider it at all that he was there. I don't know. I have no...
This is the kind of thing I thought you might read into.
No, I didn't. I didn't even think about it.
I did.
Did you?
And I didn't think it was weird that it was Woon and not Hami.
Sure,
that's fair.
I thought the biggest thing was if anything violent were to go down, you'd want somebody more like militaristically trained. And Woon is that person. Hame is not a green bone in the same capacity as Woon is.
Isn't the other way around?
Is it the other way around? Am I wrong?
Hami was a fist, or at least a finger, and then but I think he got hurt. I think he got hurt and had to go to the weatherman side, so he might not have that same capacity.
I think you're still right, just for different reasons. Yeah.
I had it wrong, but I got the right answer with the wrong equation.
Sometimes it works as long as we don't check your homework.
Can I say I didn't read anything into it. I thought it was more appropriate for a chief of staff to attend this meeting with the weatherman than whatever the luckbringer does. This for senior luckbringer or whatever.
Basically the lawyer, right? So that's the way that
I thought him as more like he's like a business person and Woon's like the body man type of thing. You know what I mean? So it just felt more appropriate, and so I didn't read anything into it until I read your question. And I was like, what's up with this guy?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying like that there is that there is anything there, but at the same time we have Woon there, and then we have Woon later to talk about too. So it's like he's appearing a couple of times, and Shay is keeping him around, of course, for obviously business reasons. But
was this the chapter? Okay, it's the next chapter. Yeah,
it's the following 14, I think, or no, next one. Yeah, where they kind of have the conversation around the dinner table.
Yes,
and that's why you were looking at me.
Yes.
I was like, what are you doing?
Because we're going to feed into that in a second, for sure. Between 13 and 14, we're going to get there. But I was just curious if there were any seeds laid there as far as you thought. We did talk a little bit about protection for Andon. I find this interesting as like the first note of negotiation, really outside of the sort of standard things that are like, obviously we're going to trade land. Next up, Andon. I have to protect Andon. What'd you make of this from Hila's choice to like go in for that immediately?
There's still love there.
Mm-hmm.
And Andon is an asset and could be used as a bargaining tool if Aitmata had him captured or something.
And I think Hilo is secretly hoping he wears Jade again. Not so secretly, I guess. Is just hoping that he wears Jade again and is trying to protect his not only his family member, but
Yeah, his little brother.
his secret weapon.
Secret weapon, little brother. I think for me, this gets to like PJ's point that he was defending a couple of weeks ago, which was like, well, the reason you have to go is because I can't protect you here. And this is like, okay, my secret weapon, my nuke, basically, is off in foreign lands. It's going to be fine. You just have to promise that you're not going to kill him.
I think it's because he loves him.
He does love him, I think. I think that this is proof positive.
I'm on Aaron's side.
I think this also, without Hilo's knowledge, plays into their benefit very strongly. Being in Hispania and secretly forging an alliance with the Hispanian military that we saw briefly from Make When. Andon could very conceivably become a militaristic asset, even if it's not in a physical sense, but in like an advisory sense to the Hispanian government, talking about Jade use.
Kind of like Shay
helping
was.
train new Jade-equipped soldiers with their distinct, like, not they don't refer to them as power, their disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
So helping hone the specific disciplines with the soldiers, I think that could be a very legitimate way that Andon could assist the clan in their militaristic, like, external sort of forged alliances.
So instead of Spider-Man, he's Xavier. Professor
And
X.
Oh.
Legally untouchable by the Mountain Clan if he doesn't pick up Jane.
Interesting. Dig it.
So I have a little question here. We get that offer, that overture from Ite to Hilo, where she's like, you know, we should be one clan. You're a more natural horn. This guy's old. He's going to have to retire soon. And has a lot to say
Ben
about
is just not in.
Hilo as a pillar. And I was curious, you know, do we think her assessment's correct there?
No, I don't.
Nor I.
I thought it was insulting, probably meant to be insulting.
Yeah.
And I feel like Hilo's really coming into his own as a pillar in his own vein. Like, yeah, he's maybe not like the textbook pillar, but like, I feel like he's making a great space for himself. He's doing a good job.
Because I think I agree with you entirely, because he's still basically acting like a horn. But that's okay because it's a wartime pillar.
I think
Is he acting like a horn or is he acting like Hilo?
yeah, he's acting like Hilo.
I think those are one and the same.
And his
Exactly,
horniness
PJ, exactly.
aspects to his personality, I think like
Horny
they
aspects.
they like make him a different, like less predictable pillar, which makes him a harder opponent, I think. And so, and now that he's like learning the role a little bit better, he has all this experience as a horn. He has a great weatherman that like balances him out really well. I don't know. I feel like he's doing something new and different and progressive that's working.
Yeah, I think she's just doing this so that later she can be like, just like she did to Shay. Like, I gave you a chance.
Yeah.
And you spit in my eye or whatever.
Very similar to what she did to Shay, basically. And even we get some of that like recounting from a secondary perspective later with Doru, but where I felt really offended by that. But
But some of the discussion we just touched on with Hilo, it's something near and dear to my heart, which is history, of course. And it's just so interesting. Like, there's all this ingrained expectation of what a pillar should be and how they should conduct themselves. And if you look at it, like, the Mountain has had 2 pillars, the second of whom is leading them right now. No Peach has had 3, one of whom ruled for a long time, and then the other one who, you know, a couple of years on the job. So it's not like this is, I mean, I understand that there were like the ancient traditions of the clan and all that, but it's like a fairly new, modern institution, and they have like, it's this time. It's just like an interesting thing. It reminds me of like, there's a lot of laws that people are like, well, it's always been like that. But then if you look at it, it's been like that since like the 60s, 70s
years
or something like that. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just interesting to me.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I keep coming back to, and I was actually thinking that and didn't say it when PJ was talking earlier because I was like, I don't know if I need to bring that up necessarily, but I love that kind of part of the story where it's like, man, this is like they're also forging a new history. So to like say that this isn't a role of the Pillar, yes, there are those traditions pre-occupation with the Shatarian folks, but it's not the same as like they get to live in the now. And so like who's to say that like Hilo isn't also setting a new standard for what a Pillar should be, or that Ite is also setting a standard, obviously.
Yeah, everybody seems to have some expectation of what a Pillar should be. But it's like a new world, new problems.
A whole new world. Yeah. Ship me to the garbage. So I want to end this chapter talking about the private conversation that ends up, and the way that this ends, basically saying that obviously neither of them are going to submit. It seems that the end of this is going to be one clan over K-Con, and that there is going to be something that must pass between the two of them, and that one of them is going to have to die for either of their full futures to be realized. I think this is kind of it's something that's kind of like in the back of your mind whenever you're thinking about like antagonist, protagonist, but I think the sort of literal visualization of this moment of negotiation, making that very literal, I don't know, special.
It's like, well, then we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
They can agree on something.
I get it.
Yep, I like that.
Die.
What was your thing, Ben? That was some darn tootin' good reading there.
That's some darn good reading.
Good reading.
Book reading, I
That's
think
book reading, yeah.
What it was.
Book reading.
That was some good book reading.
All right, that's it for chapter 12.
Chapter 13, After the Show. The Pillars hold a joint press conference announcing their peace agreement and its terms. Later, following dinner, the mates, Shay, and Hilo discuss the peace, the geopolitical situation, and what it could mean for K-Con, and they get into a little teasing of Shay, gotta do it. The next morning, Hilo and Wen have sex, and then discuss clan business, and Amy's snubbing of Wen's letter.
Where to start?
Probably at the nipple
Sex.
play.
I think we close with the nipple play, but I like the suggestion.
I tried, Aaron.
Okay.
We get, the obvious stuff, what we already knew, they lay it out, the formality of the press conference. This is where I think a lot of the theater of it comes in, PJ. And then we also learn more transition from the mountain incoming, a new weatherman.
I feel like the mountain is just reeling right now. Lots of turnover.
That is what we read on
they're
it.
constantly turning people over. I mean, new Otherman, new Horn, but just Ite, that sort of pillar, one might say, of the clan.
Good one.
Yep. And
So-
we get the seeds of some of the turmoil potentially
Thanks,
lurking
Aaron.
below the surface. Below,
This
not
is
below.
replacing the weatherman that is like taking all of the blame for the discrepancy in the jade mine, right?
Correct.
Mhm.
Which
Yeah. I'm sure it
feels
wasn't
fishy.
his fault.
She tires of him anyway, She said that last book. She wasn't rocking with him.
And obviously they had no choice with the horn. Because he did.
He got killed.
Yeah, things don't look super stable for the mountain, huh?
And I think, so we're hitting the obvious parts of it here, right? But then we get into that more later where it's like, Ite is the mountain. And then Hilo's like, I got my homies with me. I got my sister, my brother-in-laws who are like basically my brother, and my wife, who are a nice little conglomerate, and I can rely on you.
And be honest, yeah.
I really like that aspect of it. And I think the more that Hilo leans into that, like the way that he talked with his family there and like letting them all know what the actual plan is, and then, letting them know that they're all free to speak. Like he's not always going to listen to them, but that they can say what they're going to say and he's going to listen. Like that is what is going to give him an advantage, I think. And that's why I feel like he's really coming into his own as the pillar here. Cause like that is a new way of looking at it. Like I think Make Wen says that or talks about it at one point where it's like Lan took on too much. He tried to handle it all himself. And like the idea that Hilo has all these great people around him, or not necessarily great, but like people with good ideas once in a while, and like different skill sets and different perspectives. Like the fact that he's willing to just like take all that in and use it to his advantage. Ultimately, he's the decision maker, but at the end of the day, like that's what makes him a good leader. And that's, I'm like, just really like, I was like really proud of him in this moment.
Don't forget to bring up friend of the pod, Miles, what he said.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes. Miles texted us when he was reading this chapter that this had some straight Fast and the Furious vibes.
That's in my notes.
Hashtag
Miles,
Family.
Yeah, I was literally in my notes is no, Pete doesn't have clan. They have family.
Shout out Miles on that. That was really good.
Miles, we're on the same wavelength, my guy.
The Fast and Furious.
If only they had some Coronas and, you know, had Vin Diesel saying salut.
If only.
Salut, mi familia.
Is that what you need?
That's what we need to really bring it
That's
home.
what everybody needs. If you really boil it down.
Hilo is Bodhi.
Yeah.
Brian?
No, Bodhi
Who's
Bodhi?
Bodhi?
from Point Break.
Oh,
He's better.
You're
It's better
going all
than
the way back
Fast
to
and
Point
Furious.
Break.
I'm going all the way back.
Anyways.
Missed.
Missed joke. It's fine.
I was still in
Um,
Fast and Furious brain. Otherwise, I would have
It's okay. It's okay.
caught
Players
that.
fuck up sometimes. Getting back to the discussion and that interplay between Hilo's chosen family and just family, Ken has a nice little speech after Hilo reveals what Ait proposed to him. And I liked it because I'm a big fan of my guy, Mate Ken.
I thought everybody
I like
was like, "Oh, look at Make Ken over
Oh,
here!" Hey,
Fucking talking. That guy talks.
like, look at it. Get a load of this guy.
No one really says it. Just like, oh, okay.
I love and hate that for him.
He has feelings?
Like, wow,
Mhm.
that was particularly well said, Make Ken.
And even then they're like, but it's not exactly right though, is it? Because I believed in you, and so that's why you're here, and
They
I
pat
just
him on the head.
had no choice.
Yeah, it is head pats, Aaron. You're totally right. It's totally like okay, go.
Okay.
You can sit down now. It's
Stop
fine.
talking
All right,
again.
thanks, buddy.
You're more the stabby
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah,
You scary stabby guy.
Can I reveal something to you guys?
Absolutely.
No.
So we get the teasing that kind of comes in here where it's like our guy Woon, you know, implications he has feelings for Wen, perhaps. Or not for Wen,
For
for Shay, perhaps. And they're teasing her a little bit like, how can you be so blind? You're so smart. When I was at this point of my read, I was like, you know who we got to ship? Shay and Ken.
Oh wow.
I was seeing the vision.
That gets really incestual.
It's not quite ancestral, but I see what you're saying.
There's too much crossover already.
It's too much crossover, but I mean, I don't know.
I mean, he's a little more sensitive than he lets on. You know what I mean? I was seeing the vision.
I do love my guy Woon, but I don't think he can handle.
I always pictured
That
Woon as like
weatherman.
an old guy.
I mean, he is older than her. He was Lan's classmate.
yeah,
So he is probably
I
about 10-ish years older
I
than
guess
her.
I'm picturing
was
him
picturing
older.
like a 40-year-old man.
All right. If that were to happen,
Which one?
would that make them double cousins? Like their offspring, would they be double cousins?
Nobody's
how that
nobody's
works?
related at all, so I don't know.
Super cousins.
Who?
Like
who
Super
Shay's
cousins.
kid and Hilo's kid.
yes.
They're cousins on both sides of
So
both
they're
of
like-
their families.
Cousins-in-law and cousins.
Super cousins.
Super cousins.
That's
I think
what I'm
that is
saying.
accurate, yeah.
It's a new grade. Creating the new grade right now. That's it. Super
I mean,
cousins.
It's not unheard of. Brothers is
No, of
like,
course.
you know, twins have married
Mhm.
twins, stuff like that.
Wow. But
that
yeah,
gets
the,
even crazier.
the shipping of Woon and Shay, I think it's just them ragging on Shay because Woon's always hanging around. He is the weatherman's shadow. He's just doing his job.
Hey, listen,
and I think previously where they said he won't let her, like, you know, walk home alone or whatever is out of guilt. I think that's more along those lines.
He does put a steady hand on Shay's back and guides her toward the rear exit.
What part of her back?
That's what we
rear
gotta know.
exit?
So we gotta know again. Streets have questions.
What do you think, Ben? You like shipping Woon and Shay?
No, absolutely not.
Or-
I can't handle all that. He's got a man.
What about Ken and Shay?
Yeah, what about the professor?
No, Ken's
I
not.
like the
I don't-
professor.
I like
gotta
the
be honest with you
professor.
guys, I don't fuck with the professor at all.
Why?
Marrow's great.
I just don't. I don't.
I love the
don't like the
professor.
vibe.
Ken is definitely not smart enough for Shay. She's got to be activated in the mind.
Thomas, here's the issue. Marrow is kind of your vibe. And so what you're telling me
Yeah,
is
it's
that
like
you're
you
not
don't
fucking
like
with
yourself.
yourself.
Marrow is not like me. I'm beating the
That's what
Marrow
you like to think.
allegations.
I don't know.
You guys are on
Oh,
the
man.
same corner. Just
I
to
would
let you
duel.
know.
Mhm.
I would duel people though. I wouldn't run away from a duel. That's why. That is why. I don't like that he ran away from a duel, and then he thinks he's gonna marry
It's
the
acceptable.
Mm,
weatherman.
I respect it.
Get out of here. He's just in my. I don't. I'm hot. I'm agitated now. The doll
Had
of
to
this
drop
Something
guy
I did as
Had
a
to drop
kid.
that right now.
I
Thinks he
don't think
deserves
that
Shay.
reflects who he is as a person now.
yeah, maybe he's gonna
But we'll see.
fight for Shay at some point down the line.
Wouldn't that be
I
nice?
want to talk about Doru being a piece of shit.
Yeah,
Sorry. Not excited for it.
I'm super excited for it. I love hating that garbage human. Anyway,
All right. Sorry. Okay. Let's wrap up this chapter. There is a couple interesting things that we haven't touched on. So in that dinner conversation as well, there's that discussion about, the geopolitical situation as it's evolving, and Shay is focused on the Aspenian Utitanian side of the coin and how like that potential war could impact the jade market, while Hilo is more on the side of like Zapunio and his ilk and the Uwean Islands and the shadier underbelly, the criminal side of the geopolitical relationships going on.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I think it's just like, I don't know. You're looking at it as like you get the weatherman perspective versus the kind of the horn perspective. Yeah, I don't know. I guess one thing that I would ask a question about on this one, it seemed like Hilo was like mad at Shay, or everybody thought Shay's take was kind of dumb, and I didn't really get that. Did you guys?
Dumb for the Aspenian.
They were just like, she didn't handle that well. That was stupid.
They were kind of like dismissive, like
Yeah.
the Hispanians only care about money. Why would they get involved in K-Town?
Right.
Like it would be too costly,
right. And
and kind of dismissing the whole point that she's the one that understands Hispanians.
right. That's kind of what I was like.
Mhm.
So I was like, when I was reading that, because there's like several references that I was like, well, I thought like she was making kind of a good point, but yeah, I think that just goes to show you that they're allied with this country and they don't even know them very well. They feel like they have a feel for them, but it seems like Hispania is trying to do something. They're up to shit. And I feel like Shay has a much better finger on the pulse in that situation than anybody else. And so when she says something, you should be like, oh, yeah, we should take that to heart.
And what I thought what does Hilo want to do on Uwean Islands? I thought he just wanted to fuck up Zapunio and get
Well,
his
now he
cousin
wants
back.
to get all the smugglers out of K-Con. Like, he wants to start
Yeah.
basically just like cleaning out all the smuggling with
But
the mountain.
why can't those two things happen in concert?
They
Maybe
can. Yeah, it's just kind of like, well, I guess, what the focus is
Sure.
of the clan. Yeah. So,
It takes a lot of resources to like commit to undercover like recon on top
digging out
of,
the entire operation.
yeah,
Mhm.
and they're constantly just hiring new rockfish all over the place. Like it's a big operation that would require a lot of resources to truly like effectively quash.
Mhm.
Plus, Barrow's about to be in on it, and you know that's going to be fucked up. So,
Barrow.
Barrow signing up to be a rockfish
Don't forget.
Ooh.
last week.
All right. So
Oh, ho.
last little bit is the sort of the morning exchange between Hilo and Wen, no pun intended there, of course. And the chief takeaway I have that I
way
feel
you
like
described that, man.
someone's got to do it.
Okay.
It was very bookish way to describe it.
Why do we think Wen raises her opinions to Hilo in private rather than in the sort of small council setup? Like Hilo says, traditionally, like his mother and other women would leave the conversation, but she sticks around. But do we think there's more like subtextual, I think, if I'm using that correctly, reasons for what's going on besides what the characters state to one another? Because they sort of hash it out, but I'm wondering if like people think there's a deeper level to it.
I think she's been taught her whole life to like be seen and not heard. Like she's not a green bone, so her opinion doesn't matter. So, like, I think she just doesn't want to like say something that then gets like shot down immediately just because of who she is, even if it was a good idea.
Yeah, other than that, I would agree. Like, there's seems to be like some cultural background to this situation, but I think basically kind of what they talk about, I took that at face value.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you. With
Okay.
both of you.
There's definitely something, like you said, seen, not heard, in her understanding and like feeling at the very least partially heard by Hilo, and so has begun to just like continue to take that like
Kind of goes back
percentage, like 5% at a time. Yeah,
kind of goes back to their very first, like their meet cute or whatever, like he saw her, like
I see you.
yeah, like a real Avatar situation.
did it
Also,
form-
this is sort of a callback to the first time we meet Wen, and we get like another weird little sexual encounter between the two, and then the sort of militaristic pillow talk, which in the first instance he's like, you'd think like a green bone or something, I think, and then now it's sort of the same thing.
Those entrancing
There's
dark nipples,
all
man.
these little fucking seeds planted that
All I'm
Fonda Lee
saying
does, and
is-
she's awesome.
She gets Hilo in a place where he has to listen to her.
Uh
Interesting.
oh.
Interesting.
And then the last thing, we'd be remiss if we didn't bring it up, the Annie situation. Fucking snubbing our girl Wen.
Annie,
Rude.
what a bitch.
What makes me think, what did Annie want from Lan? And now she's like, now that Lan's not there, don't
Do you think
talk
like
to me
it's
anymore.
specifically about? I took it as like she was insulted that it was Make when that was writing her the letter, but that's interesting. Thinking that
Like now it's like
Yeah.
that was one of her lifelines or something for
Yeah.
whatever she wanted. And now that Lan's dead, she's got to do something else.
do you think her?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I agree with Aaron here, especially considering the familial relation that everybody's pointing to is just kind of a look in his eye and not any sort of like Hilo is racking his brain trying to like figure out why he looks like why everybody's saying that he looks like Lan, and Wen is admitting that like it just kind of looks like a baby, but you got to admit there's a look in the eye. I think Enya.
Annie.
Amy. It's like Amy, but Ain.
Yeah, very much like Amy.
I think
Closer to
Amy
Amy.
is or was trying to pull a fast one on Lan for her personal gain.
That's interesting. I like that.
Like maybe it's not Lan's baby.
Right.
Adam put in the Anderson Pot, this bitch from Smoking Out the Window.
Thanks, Adru, for doing that. Oh man, I can't wait to read more. All right, with that, let's get to chapter 14, Old Warrior's Mercy. Shay heads out of town to put an end to Yoon Dorupan. When she arrives, Doru unpacks various parts of his complicated legacy, but Shay is left incapable of doing the deed. He quickly pulls a pistol from the table and does it himself. And that's
Brutal.
the fucking chapter.
Hated this for Shay.
I have issue with how that goes down, because he doesn't quickly pull a pistol out of the bedside table.
No.
And, like, he pulls it and keeps talking to her, and she does nothing. He quietly and secretly pulls something from a bedside table. She doesn't see what it is, but she sees that he's pulling something from the bedside table while he's talking to her.
No, the way it's described is that it's too quick for her to react. He's like, okay, blah, 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 pulls it out, boom.
So the way that it's said is Doru shifted in his chair and opened the drawer of the side table. Then he continues speaking. He just opens the drawer. He then very suddenly, after he finishes saying the final line that I want to definitely read, Shay realized what he was about to do the instant before he took out the pistol, put the barrel in his mouth, and pulled the trigger. Like, he does it in a flash.
Yeah,
but
and
he
she's
pulls
like
the drawer
shocked,
open ahead
like,
of time.
whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he makes an aggressive, like, what would in any
It's
sort
a casual
of scenario
move.
would be a weird move. Maybe
And-
not an aggressive move, but a weird
An old man.
move.
And also, if only, Greenbones had a fucking superpower where they could perceive the intentions of
takes
other
his jade
people.
out.
She's
He takes
disarmed
his-
by the emotions of the
No, he
moment.
takes
Yeah,
his
and
jade
also,
out.
yeah.
Can I say this
No.
chapter,
No.
I was, I think, the angriest I've ever been reading a chapter of anything ever. Just the entire
Really?
time.
Okay. Well, I'm going to need to like wind us back to the beginning of this so that we
Not
can unpack
At
all
Shay,
of
I
that
wasn't
a little
angry
bit.
at Shay the whole time. Just angry at Doru, because I was just like, fuck this guy the entire time. But like, just visceral anger. Don't sigh about fuck Doru. Come on.
No, you're
Come on, man.
definitely. But it's complicated. Like,
Not
that's
with Doru.
I think that's one of the really important things with Doru's character is that it is so complicated. And that's one of the biggest things is Shay contemplating her feelings about Doru's legacy. And that's why she can't ultimately, kill him. The chapter starts, though, with Shay contemplating her feelings for Woon. We talked about that a little bit, but I think that's interesting that that's in the back of her head all of a sudden, where it's like, whoa, should I like Woon? I can't believe I missed that.
Or she's like, does he
do
like
I not
me?
pay?
Is
Do
that
I
why
not
he
pay
does
attention to
this?
people's fucking cues, which happens throughout this chapter? Like,
Yeah.
Draw outward.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there is that does he like me bit, of course, here too. But we get to Doru, of course. We arrive on the doorstep, and he does pass on some interesting information regarding what happened when he...
Real quick, sorry. So we get Doru. He has a little girl in there with him, of course. So that's number one why I was like, fuck this guy.
I was going to, call back to that in a moment.
So I just
But
thought that's like how we see
No,
him.
and like there... So it's almost at the end of it, right? So like we see the little girl, but then we get the description of like the nipples poking through the clear shirt.
Right, but
and that's like just enough to be, and I think the word is even small mounds, and that is just like ingrained in my brain of like fucked up.
Right, but I mean, given his history, as soon as there was a teenage girl in there, I was like, fuck this.
Right.
We know what's going
it's
on.
bad. And it's definitely not,
Especially like,
considering the amount of trust that the headman places.
Yeah.
In
Exactly.
just a Greenbone being here in general. But he does pass on some information that I think is fascinating, which is that Ite didn't really give a shit after Shay turned down the offer, right? And he gives a lot of other information, but that's that one moment where it's like, whoa. Like, Doru was fighting for the survival of the top echelon of the family still, even in those moments, even if it's just survival. But, yeah, like I said, complicated character.
Yeah, I feel like this end for him was right in line with his character. He's just been like, it's always
It's
like,
just,
yeah, it's like,
but,
he's been unsatisfying and you can never get your hands on him. He's like slippery. It's just like, yeah, it's just, he was Doru to the end. And I don't know. Yeah, this was a tough look
And
for
he's
sure.
always been emotionally manipulative,
Right.
to everyone
Yeah,
around
and it's
him.
fucked how well he does that. And just like even the little strings he plays with this girl that was waiting on him. He's like, thank you for taking care of an old Greenbone at the end of his life. And it's just like, no, fuck you, man. Like,
like you'll get to heaven for this now.
yeah. It is
just at the end, like all the way to the end, he just like plays that tune.
That's why-
and it's just terrible.
He's a slithery little snake.
Yeah.
And like all of his, like you said, Ben, like everything he does and says is like so calculated.
Yeah.
So like I get from Shay's perspective, the feelings and the emotions are very complicated because it is someone she has loved for most of her life. And then in the last X amount of years, 5 to 10-ish, has found out he's a monster. And then the monstrosity has gone deeper and deeper, but it is hard to pull apart her uncle
Separate.
from. Yeah. But I don't think he is a complicated person. I think he's just bad to the core. And
No, it's complicated
Like, he's
feelings
selfish.
about Doru, not he's
Right.
a complicated person.
okay.
He's
just
a piece
to be
of shit.
clear, right?
Yeah.
The bullet all
No.
the way through, like not just the pedophilia, like
Well,
just
okay.
he's
there is
selfish and only cares about himself and the torch. Everything else is immaterial.
The only layer that I would try to layer in myself on top of that to say that he's a little bit more complicated is that it is some of it's PTSD driven, some of it's based on like war and like all of that bullshit. But that's not an excuse. That's just that is a rationality, not an excuse, because he is still garbage for what he's done. But that's where it came from, so we can understand why, if that makes sense.
And
It complicates it. It doesn't forgive it.
We have to like believe what he's saying, that he wanted to spare Shay and Andon, but like who knows what was actually going on.
Definitely doubt he wanted to spare Andon based on the earlier exchanges.
Right. And he's just saying whatever he knows
Shay wants
will
to hear. Yeah.
pull Shay's heartstrings.
I think that he's definitely pulling on Shay's heartstrings. I think you're right. At the same time, though, I think he's at the end of his life. Is he not just being like, he's obviously a slime ball still. Like, that's not going to change. I don't know. I've got this weird, maybe it's just my own experience, but I've got this weird gradient of like, I've always experienced way more honesty when someone's dying than any other time in their life. So I see a lot of this as having potential for being more honest. So I could see him swinging for Shay and Andon. But at the very least, Shay, no doubt.
I mean, above all else, he has had Call Sen's best interests at heart.
True. Always.
And Call Sen is the one that went to bat for Andon to begin with. So, despite any personal feelings, I could see him batting for him at the end of his life because of Call Sen.
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. Ugh. Man. And it is tough to rationalize that too, given grandfather's legacy in the moment. So what does one do? There's a lovely quote that he says, and it's simple. It's easy. To hold on to power, one must deny it to others. And similar to the violence quote that we had earlier, this is just perfect Fonda, punchy writing. And this is a very Doru thing to say, but also feels like a good piece of advice to like give her. And so there's this duality in this moment of like, he does genuinely want what's best for her and the clan, and like to make sure that the family as like an extension of the pillars survives into the future, and tries to hand off as much of that information as possible and advice, despite coming from a literal worm in my mind.
Is that what he wants? Or does he just want to have his finger on the actions of the clan, even in his death? He just more manipulation.
That's it.
He's got her off kilter, and then he's like, "Hey, but here's what an experienced weatherman
What does that
does."
achieve? What does that achieve? Though
His
I don't think
evil, sneaky legacy just lingers on.
But the sneaky legacy was still pro the family surviving.
And I think Thomas is right. I think a warrior goes down fighting. So I don't think he's just like, okay, here's all my honest thoughts. I give in. I'm going to die. I think he's like holding up the middle finger while he shoots himself in the mouth.
I think so, Charles. I think it does, in his mind, it's probably like it is beneficial to the clan, but I think it's like self-aggrandizing side effect. Also, hey, if it helps the clan, it helps the clan.
I've
That's
also
all.
never been at someone's deathbed in which they didn't think way more of themselves than they ever were. Like it's one of those moments. I don't know. You're both little and big. So I feel like he knows that the end is here. And so in both contexts, I get it. But yeah. The final fucking words that he says sit with me. You were your grandfather's favorite and mine as well. Fucked. I've never wanted to cause you any trouble or heartache, which is basically the out that he gives to killing himself in the moment and forgiving Shay for hesitating at doing it herself.
And Shay not wanting her.
This shouldn't be on here.
Shay not wanting her Coulson's ghost disapproving of her. It's not just hesitating to kill Doru, it's hesitating because of her.
It's for Sen. Yeah, it's for Gramps.
Grampies.
Funny that fucking Doru thinks he's sniffing heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, dog, you ain't getting there.
Sen did either.
Why exactly was she your favorite, Doru?
Thank you. And I wanted to bring this up. Like, right. Clearly, dude just only didn't touch her because she was Tall Sen's granddaughter. But like going after her friend.
Those words are laced. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, you can't be like, you know, I know that's you couched it after, like, it's not just what's best for the clan, but like, you can't be like doing what's best for the clan and then be like, you are always my favorite. Like, it's just all these creepy little things he's doing, all these machinations the whole time. That's why I'm fired up. It's all gross. All of it is gross. He was bad at his job. Fuck Doru.
Well, he was great at his job, actually.
He was bad
That's the problem. He was incredible at his job.
Disagree. We learned all those chapters. He was engaged in cronyism for years. He was like thriving on nepotism for 10 years. Like the last 10-ish years of his life.
Violence,
terrible.
if not exactly those kind of things, though. Like,
but like we learned from Hami that he wasn't doing good at his job the last like 10 years.
Right.
That's
he
all.
was an old man and shouldn't have been working anymore. But
good riddance.
I'm just saying. Pedophile plus bad at your job for 10 years.
So just I want to bring up something that was brought up regarding the heaven comment.
Yep.
Do we have any inclination of a hell in their religion?
No. I don't think so. I think they do. Are they doomed to wander, or was that just the one guy whose name eludes me?
That is the one guy.
Okay.
There is an interlude later, but we're not there.
Okay. So, like, the only afterlife we know of is heaven in their theology. So,
right. I was thinking that when I made the joke too, but
yeah. I'm just curious. I was just curious because I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't recall either.
Yeah, no, it's not. There's nothing textual at this point. It's just that the end of life is that the gates. Was
there something when Hilo was cutting his tongue about hell?
I don't remember. It was from a mission they didn't think they'd return. I'll look it up as we keep going. I'm going to look that
up in a second here, and we'll go into the next chapter. But I do want to end that with just this note that makes and adds to Shay's feelings and the kind of complication of it all, with the request of like having him buried near the prison camp in which he suffered most of his life and in that kind of war area that he spent a lot of his life, and that kind of engraving, while like a grave without a name might be its own kind of thing, the fact that she still gives him kind of that honorable end, I find fascinating in the way that Shay thinks about morality, right? Not that, and thinks about Aisho. And that's interesting, I think. What'd you guys make of that decision to bury him honorably? Mostly honorably.
It seemed a little out of place.
Yeah. I mean, I thought hesitation also felt out of place, to be fair. Like the whole thing felt out of I don't understand why she's being so nice to him in these end moments, based on like how she's been so aggressively against him and disgusted by him.
But she kind of
rightfully so.
She saved his life earlier too, so it's just she has like really complex decision making around Doru.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like if it were Hilo, he would have been like, "What up, dude?"
Yeah.
He would have been like,
again,
yeah, you don't
problem
have
would have
long.
been solved.
It's going to be
had
painful.
Hilo killed him in the last book.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for 14.
So I did look it up in the last book. There are about 4 references to hell. None of them a hell. It's all like hellish quality, what the hell, stuff like that. The cut the ton thing, there's just a mission they weren't expected to return from, no afterlife going on there. However, to me, when I read like, hellish qualities suggests there must be some concept of what hell is, right?
Right. I would think so too.
But I don't think we've done an explicit heaven and hell dichotomy going on.
Gotcha.
Not at all. Not yet.
And that brings us to chapter 15, Rats in the Celestial Radiance. Wen spends time in the Celestial Radiance, a sort of neutral spa located in mountain territory. Ostensibly there to enjoy the comforts of the spa, she and Shay have been secretly cultivating a network of spies, several of whom Wen connects with at the Celestial Radiance on a regular basis. We also learn of the Tobin family, their position in the clan, and some general unease over Itmada's line of succession, and we see some suggestion of No Pete's plans to capitalize on that.
Spa day.
Love a spa day. Celestial Radiance, great name for a spa.
Yeah.
I love Make Wen the Spy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Love a Make Wen chapter.
yeah. I think these are quickly becoming some of my favorite parts of these books. I just love the development of her character. I love her, like, she's really good at this, and she's the way that she's cultivated this network very naturally and discreetly is wonderful. She's finding out really good information, and I think the hammer at the end is just when she like finally asserts herself in the family conversation, which was great. Is that at this chapter or is that in the last one? That's in this one, right? She like basically says like, yes, she speaks her mind. She basically says like, I love that she like Jay introduces all this information about that Doru gave them. And then she's like, yeah, now we know what not to do.
Exactly.
Right.
Girl.
Yes.
Exactly. And this is why
And then
love
they all
Make
look
Wen.
at her and they're like, oh, first make Ken, now you.
I just love that.
And Hilo's like, let's fucking go.
Yes. That's my girl.
So one of the things that I think stood out to me, and this might just be, I missed it before, but so we did like a couple instances where like time's moving pretty fast. We did, and in there's the reference to months spent studying. And then here, she's 7 months pregnant.
I missed that.
I caught it, yeah.
Because there's
7
a
months pregnant
3-month jump
Yeah.
between A and B, between 14 and 15,
Oh.
as it's mentioned.
And we also get, little behind the scenes knowledge of what it means for Wen to be the wife of the pillar, maybe why Annie might have fled from that role, even though she on the surface liked it, how Wen is seeking to use it as an advantage.
Get perks.
To get perks, which lead to beautiful spy network being built.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with what Ben said. Wen's chapters are super fun.
I'm so glad to hear that now. You had no idea how much I
I
was
know.
suffering the first couple of
I was
weeks.
like,
of
I
think
hate
down
she's-
on Wen. It hurt me. It hurt me personally.
She might be my second favorite character, so how down
Yeah,
you
no
all
no
were.
opinion of yours personally spited me more.
Good. I live to disappoint.
That was a moment. But we've also got the inheritance games, right? Or did you want to go to Hilo? Sorry.
I did want to go to Hilo quick. So I think at times, and very fairly so, we've criticized the way Hilo, at least outwardly, dismisses Wen at times. And, but then we get Wen's line of thinking about things, and it seems to kind of push back on some of the discussions we've had, I felt like. And how he's, never made her feel less than for being a Stone Eye or for being from a cursed family. And that's why she loves him so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that sort of like internal monologue fight about, should I tell him what I've been doing? He has to accept it, and then she becomes pregnant. So like that whole exchange. I was wondering what everybody else made of that.
I liked the whole, does this go into her importance now as possibly creating an heir, since Lan's son isn't around, and like she's as the wife carrying the heir, she's like all of a sudden become this very important person. So even though the world always shunned her because Hilo treated her with respect, now she's been lifted up into a place of respect.
Yeah.
She gets to be on TV.
I really did like that perspective shift a little bit, and getting her understanding of the situation and how she sees Hilo, and just like he respects her and loves her and doesn't care about her being a Stone Eye and all that bullshit that goes along with her name. But he just kind of sees one particular thing, like Jade, I guess, and black and white, kind of like it's for certain people, and so that makes her unqualified to be a part of the clan or whatever because she can't wear jade. But it's not anything other than that. He's like still sees her. I don't know. He like still sees a lot of value in her. I still think there's something that he's missing there because if he's kind of like, that's the one thing where Hilo's kind of super traditional and where I think that he could stand to evolve. But I like her perspective on it, and it made me rethink that a little bit as well. It's almost like something that he can't help. It's like something that's inherent to him and his family, you know, and just like the way he was raised and grew up. So that also makes it something that you can be like, okay, that's a little more understandable, I guess. But I do still think that he can stand to like, I want him to see her full value, not like he does in a way. He sees her full humanity and value and sees her as a person in a way that a lot of society doesn't. But I want him to see her as like a super spy as well, you know? Like
I still think he'll be super pissed.
Yeah, he definitely will be.
Her opinions can help the clan, but her actions, it's like you're kind of limited.
There's like, there's like a line for that with only people that wear jade can take action on behalf of the clan.
Yeah, I read it as he thinks like people with jade have a very specific responsibility to like be protectors, and so that's how I took it.
I felt like we had been in this story silently but very progressively breaking down the gender barrier of the clans in general. Like more women are starting to become green bones, and it's up to like 25% of the students at Khal Dusharan Academy are women at this point. And like Shay is making comments about like that's not going to be a problem in the future. But now we get Make Wen intentionally like taking walks at dusk as opposed to dawn because superstitiously that will provide a male heir instead of a female heir. Like it feels like a step back weirdly, and it's kind of breezed over a little bit, but I felt weird about that comment.
But she also actively
she's like,
pushes
the sex
against
is already set, so I'm not sucking on these lemons.
That's true.
Yeah, she does actively push against it, just like Aaron said.
Fair.
Yeah.
Good point.
Fuck these lemons. None of that.
Fuck
these that. Fuck these lemons in particular.
But those walks presumably are Hilo's idea. And the fact that they're just kind of like not really mentioned other than like to say why they're there. Like I don't recall her saying that they're useless, or did she?
It wasn't useless. It was the lemon thing where it's like this.
Right.
The sex is set, which is literally the quote from the moment in 15. So like this isn't going to change anything.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She was getting caught in superstition, but I wouldn't place that blame or responsibility on Hilo. I would place that on society for wanting and like thinking that the heir needs to be male.
Okay.
Right.
PJ, I don't think it says that she does the walks. So it says superstition held that sucking the juice of an entire lemon each day guaranteed a masculine child. So did taking daily walks at dawn, dusk for a female child, eating spicy food. So it like lists all the sort of superstitious at once.
I missed.
And then it says she's not superstitious because she's a Stone Eye.
Yeah. Right.
Gotcha. Left.
She doesn't like the pulling on the ears. Why would she go for the walks?
And it is funny.
Like she's dealt with that her whole life.
It does lead to an interesting thing that I thought about bringing up anyway. So she left praying to the gods to her sister-in-law. Kind of funny.
True. Yeah, a little bit. The gods, like in culture, don't respect her and like her birth and her birthrights. So why would she?
Okay.
Yeah, fuck him.
I misunderstood what was going on in the story. So
hey, I've done it. We've all done it.
Things are better than I thought they were.
Things are better than he thought. It also made sense though, PJ. I mean, I don't, granted, do not know Asian history nearly at all, but 60s, 80s, kind of the timeline we've settled into as the analog to our world here. And that's second wave feminism, right? So it does make sense that this would be, women emerging in Cantonese culture more.
Mm-hmm.
It fits. It sits. It's true.
Just to wrap up the Hilo portion before we move on into the sort of subterfuge planning, scheming parts of the chapter with the nephew and whatnot. The way when things about Hilo, I just want to read the quote. Hilo was accepting of people as they were. He had never once made her feel shame for her parents' well-known disgrace across both major clans, her rumored illegitimacy, or her condition as a stone eye. For that, she loved him ferociously. She hated to keep secrets from him, but for Tall Hilo, there was a stark division in the world that determined a person's duties and destiny, a line drawn with Jade. So we've already discussed that. I just wanted to get the quote out there because I loved it. Exactly.
Formalizes it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And ferocious.
And just like brilliant writing as per usual.
No one's grumpy about the writing.
No, never have been.
It feels.
All right. So then now we get the sort of data dump about Ait's nephew and the Tobin family.
This was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Again, another like learning more about other people expands.
Mm-hmm.
It like creates depth.
Right. And then there was a lot of stuff, we kind of touched on it earlier, but there's a lot of stuff in here about how like one family has like a weak bloodline with a lot of shine addiction and
What
the
they need is
itches.
a
That's the
transfusion.
Iway family, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Where her weatherman comes from.
They need a
Right.
thick-blooded transfusion.
Yeah.
Clumpy blood. Stick it in.
Start dating.
No one wants clumpy blood. for the record, you don't want clumpy blood. Thick blood, maybe, but clumpy, probably
Some
not.
gravy in you.
We've been asking for schemes, and the Call family has just been delivering them for a while now.
Yeah,
so
we're scheming.
I love
Lon
that
was
aspect.
just, not nice with the schemes, but
yeah,
Shay and Hilo, that in this new generation.
right. They get it. And I think this is a particularly good scheme.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope.
Why not?
Especially
try it
going
out?
against Doru's version of it.
Right, exactly. So yeah.
And Aitmata hates family.
She does.
Yeah.
She, although it kind of makes sense, right? Because she was an orphan, adopted her dad, neglected her, even though she was the best of her sibling. Not neglected, but neglected to give her the inheritance and formalize her as the leader of the clan. So, like, the resentment of family and especially of her, adopted brother's family makes sense. It's
Right.
sort of, it's very, like a darker, more twisted side of Andon.
Yeah. It's very, very sharp scheme. I like it.
Hope it works.
I do too. I feel like Aitmata's going to be hard to assassinate, though.
She's tricky.
She is. Just like Run DMC.
If we've learned nothing, it's that she's tricky.
One more thing that stood out to me was that the weatherman is on the younger side. And obviously his family's fiercely loyal to Ait, but she consciously chose an older horn, and now we're getting back to a weatherman more in line of the generation of the Talls. What do you think that could mean? That could portend?
I don't know. I think maybe, I don't know. Ait's maybe planning for a more fresh perspective, or somebody that's understands the a younger generation more. But I didn't think about that one too deeply.
Yeah.
It could just be the blood devote, like they're so
Right.
devoted to her. There's a billion reasons. So I got Cross. You got anything?
No, that's it.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Before
All right.
we wrap up quick, one thing that I wanted to bring up in the chapter where they're negotiating, Ait's Jade is set in silver. And I know that was important to you guys last time we heard about Ait's Jade. And so I noticed it, wanted to shout it out. Jade inlet in silver. Or inlaid in silver.
Kind of fancy. Gold.
Gold and jade.
is the one
That's-
not to mix.
That's why I wanted to shout it out, because we couldn't figure out what the first time we did the descriptor.
So she's
Because
good.
at first she had a gold inlay, right?
I don't.
It was, yeah, it wasn't gold.
It wasn't
but
gold.
It was just
That's why we
wrapped.
got that conspiracy corner
Okay.
going.
But it is
Okay,
separate.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So who has to
All
drink?
right.
Nobody.
There is no predictions that came true this week, so we've got nothing there as of yet. Nothing crazy, but in the coming weeks we may. So with that, we go into next week. Next week we're going to be reading chapters 16 through the first interlude. 16 through the first interlude. So should be a short episode by all accounts. It's a short reading section, but just to wrap up part 1 of the book.
What are the chapters surrounding the interlude? Like, what's the last chapter we'll read?
I think it's 21 or 22. Let me double check real quick.
I think it's 21.
1 second. I feel like it's 21. Yeah, 21.
Okay, so after 21 is the first interlude. We're reading through the interlude.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Yeah, exactly. So 6 plus the interlude, so 6.2 or whatever, because they're generally pretty short. So 6 chapters, pretty easy.
Sounds great.
See y'all on Thursday. Get it? It's a joke,
get it.
because like the episodes come out on Thursday, but
Mhm.
also we're recording that one on Thursday. Cool. All right. Fuck me.
4.9
All right,
out
so,
of 10.
yeah, I deserve that. My humor is not
That was
Generous, I think.
Tommy.
for the night.
Thank you.
It's a
That was very
Monday.
generous.
It's a Monday, and we're there. So that's where we'll leave you for this week.
Thank
Quickly,
you
who won the week?
as
Who won the week,
ever.
though?
Who won the week?
Oh, who won the week? Who won the week? Who won the week?
Who won the week?
Make
won the
win.
week?
It's Make Win. I just wanted
I
to give
can
her a
say
shout
that.
out.
Is it call make win now?
It was Dory.
It is Troll. Shut the
Call
shit.
win?
Don't even do it as a joke.
It was call make when, which I also
I
did
hope we
put in the
never-
notes because I was like, it's interesting that that's like actually wrapped into the name is also the having the surname right there, which I think makes sense.
Call make win.
Yeah, call make when.
Yep,
I think
Big time shout out to her.
she won.
Easy.
And we won because
Yeah.
Dory's dead.
Yeah.
Finally.
True. We did win. Second place, though, I would firmly give to Zupunyo as just a completely different character.
Low
and as
key.
a fun.
Doru might have won the week because he got his fucking manipulation off and killed himself. Like he did everything he wanted with no opposition.
Mm.
I love how you turned to my joke and took it seriously. So I appreciate that.
It sucks though
endlessly.
because like he's evil and he got everything he wanted.
I think he would have preferred
It's
not to
kinda
have
true.
had to kill himself.
Probably true.
Anyway,
You would have
Maybe,
preferred
the
to just
episode's
die.
over though. So
Rest in
It
peace.
is. It is. So
Rest
that's
in
where we'll
peace.
leave you for this week.
XOXO.
Thank you as ever to everybody except for Doru.
Deserved
Thank
it.
you, Tim and Andrew, for keeping the show's lights on. You can check out the links in our show notes where you can find our Patreon, our previous episodes, our websites, our social media accounts, fucking everything, all in one very nice, easy, convenient location.
I'm gonna channel
Give me the
Aaron.
spot. Yeah.
Give
You
us
can do-
5
or-
stars only.
yeah.
If you don't give us 5 stars only, we will go to wherever Barrow is, bring him into your life, and just let him,
Let him
channel
hang.
his dark
Let him-
luck.
Just let him hang out.
Let him hang out. Oh man, it's crazy, terrifying.
It's a terrible.
I sent that to Thomas
Fate.
telepathically.
I love that. I love that. You can find us, Words Whiskey Pod, on Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, Words and Whiskey Show at gmail.com, patreon.com/Words and Whiskey. You can find High Key Obsessed at High Key O Pod. You can find
On
Heller
Twitter,
Pod on Twitter, and High Key Obsessed or High Key
High Key Obsessed podcast.
on Instagram. High Key Obsessed Podcast. We need to write that one out for me. On Instagram, and you can find Heller Pod at both on Twitter and Instagram at Heller Pod. Yeah?
Sure.
Cool, rad, dope. All right. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.